Well, you guys are awesome. I can stand up here on a Sunday morning and they never shut up. You guys are right on cue. Thank you so very much for being here. It was not too many months ago that I stood in this very same place with it in front of me, very similar to this one. And there was a beautiful floral piece sitting on the center of that table. And there was I'm not even sure what to call it, but there was a beautiful piece in the middle of the flowers, and somebody had calligraphied on it these words: because someone we love is in heaven, there's a little bit of heaven in our hearts. And I think that is most appropriate for everything that I have discovered about Lindsay Ashburn. And so I want to thank all of you for coming and for being here with Stephen and the rest of the family today. I'm glad that death doesn't have to have the last word in our lives, and I'm glad that a grave or an urn is not our final destination. You see, there's hope in someone who was so real that every spring, and even though today it doesn't quite feel like spring, winter doesn't want to quite let go yet, but every single spring we remember this person's resurrection. His name is Jesus, and our hope is not found in religion or human effort. Those things do not make heaven available to us. Jesus himself said, I am the way, I am the truth, I am the life. It's not any more complicated than that. It is just that simple. So thank you for coming today. Those of you who are family, some of you I've met before, some of you I've just had the privilege of meeting today. I'm glad that you were together. There's nothing like family on a day like today. You share common love, common memories, common experiences together, and you help each other with closure at a time like this. The vast majority of you are friends, and it's obviously that Lindsay was very well loved. And I'm glad you're here because you were the ones who make a difference for this family. Your presence encourages them. It lets them know that this person who meant so much to them also means so much to you. I'm a pastor here in church, and that means I have a bias. And that is, I'm also glad that God showed up today. And he always does at moments like this. In every service like this, he shows up. Whether he's invited or not, he shows up. He doesn't make a lot of noise. He doesn't draw attention to himself. But he shows up because over 4,000 years ago, God made a promise in the Old Testament. He said, I am the God of all comfort. In that very brief statement, he tells us two things. Number one, you and I are going to face things in life that are hurtful and harmful. And because of that, we're going to need comfort. And he said, I will be there in the midst of your comfort. If you ever hear a preacher tell you, if you just become a Christian, you'll never have any other problems, run from that person as fast as you can and make sure you have your wallet and your checkbook with you, all right? Because that's what they're interested in. I have discovered God's presence in the past year in ways like I never knew before. Since COVID hit, we've had to be creative about how we did memorial services. And I did them in a lot of different places. I did them in people's living rooms. I did them in the backyard by their swimming pool. I did them by a river. I did them over on the coast. Believe it or not, I did two during COVID in a bar. Never imagined in my lifetime I would have ever done that. You want to talk about the mixing of spirits, all right? Pretty incredible, actually. Yeah, and you know what? And Jim Beam didn't win, all right? God was not intimidated by that at all, and he showed up to do what he promises to do today, and that is to be a comfort for us. Let me see if I can set perspective, because I think our perspective of life and living, our perspective of death and dying, our perspective of what's on the other side of death is what makes the real difference in the way in which we leave from here today, of whether our hearts are going to be crushed or our spirits are going to be lifted just a bit. So there's a couple of stories let me tell to see if we can set our perspective today. And I'm going to tell you right now, since I've stood up here in these 3 minutes, my iPad has gone on and off 5 times. So if my brain acts like it is not functional, that is accurate. But there's a story about a child psychologist who wanted to observe children in different negative circumstances. So they got a room and they filled it full of horse manure. And then they put a first child in there. It was a young boy, and this was a pessimistic boy. He always complained about everything. He never saw anything good. And predictably, when he was in the room, he whined and he cried and he despaired that he was in a room full of nothing but smelly manure. And then, once they took him out, they put in a young girl. She was a very happy, easygoing young lady. And they put her in the room. And as soon as they put her in there, she started digging through all the manure with an excitement that baffled everybody who was watching. And after a few moments of watching this, they asked her, "Honey, why are you so excited to be in a room full of manure?" And she looked at everybody there and she said, "With this much manure, there's got to be a horse in here somewhere." And I like her attitude, and I suspect that might have been Lindsay's attitude in that very same room. Okay, guys, this is going to drive me nuts, so I'm going to have to indulge me for just a moment. Will you do that? I'm going to turn this thing off, and then I'm going to turn it back on. And if that doesn't work, yeah, okay. And why is it not turning off? Don't you just love, this is when I love paper, okay? What am I doing wrong, Andrew? Ah, there we go. Helps to push the right button, doesn't it? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Let's try this. So, Stephen, could you come up and do a song and dance for me for just a moment while we wait here? All right, the apple's coming up, so it is coming on. I can tell you that after this service is over, there's going to be tri-tip, chicken, rice pilaf, green beans, Haagen-Dazs ice cream. Are you going to take this opportunity to... Well, it's charged, so I'm not sure. It just keeps going on and off. Thank you. He's our local technician. Yeah, wrong cable. All right. Let's see if this works. Okay. I'm sure many of you have seen the movie The Horse Whisperer. Tom Booker had a gift when it comes to what he calls gentling horses. In one telling scene, there was a traumatized horse, frightened by a ringing cell phone, gallops off to the far end of the large pasture. Booker walks into the pasture and he sits down where he waits. He waits for what appears to be hours. Drawn by curiosity, the horse finally inches its way closer and closer and closer until finally, with his nose, he touches the whisperer, who then leads the horse back to the safety of its stall. Like that horse, there are an awful lot of people, and it didn't work, Andrew. There are an awful lot of people who get startled by things in life, and they're looking for a safe place. I don't know what you had figured when you came here today, but what is going to make the difference between our spirits being crushed and our hearts being cheered is our perspective. And let's jump in and see what perspective that Lindsay's life might give to us on a day like today. She was born 42 years ago in Santa Barbara, California, on April the 28th, 1979. Is that right, Mom and Dad? All right, Stephen, you did good, okay? And do you know what day of the week? I bet, Mom, you might remember this. Do you know what day of the week your daughter was born on? Exactly correct. I've asked this question a few hundreds of times now, and the only ones who know the answer are moms. They seem to remember the exact day. She did not want to miss a weekend, so she showed up on Saturday. There was probably a horse show somewhere that day. And oh, how blessed she was to grow up in Santa Barbara. It is the home of McConnell's ice cream. It is my favorite. Jimmy Carter happened to be president at the particular time. He was a good man, though he might not have been necessarily the best president we ever had. Lindsay shared her special day, April the 28th, with some other pretty famous people in history. She shared her birthday with the 5th president of the United States. I'm going to check your history. Who was that? How about James Monroe, all right? 5th president. He was born in 1758. Now, just as James Monroe was somewhat famous, she also shared her birthday with somebody who was infamous, and that is Saddam Hussein also happened to be born on that very day. But let's pick it up to somebody I like a whole lot better than even Jimmy Carter or Saddam Hussein, and that was the pinup girl in my bedroom when I was a teenager, Anne Margaret. All right, yeah, some of you are old enough to recognize, yeah, that hot redhead. And then she also shared it with one of the ugliest men who ever hosted a talk show. Jay Leno, yeah, you got it right, absolutely correct. A nice guy, but they shared that same birthday. There was some pretty good music came out the year that she was born. Donna Summers probably had 3 out of the top 15 songs that year. Bad Girls, Hot Stuff, and MacArthur Park. Rod Stewart, all right, had a hit song that year called Do You Think I'm... Okay, a few of you remember that one. And then the Village People, the one-hit wonder. Do you remember what they came out with that year? Yeah, YMCA. The Bee Gees were still going by then, and they had one called Too Much Heaven. The Doobie Brothers still had a hit song called What a Fool Believes. And the timeless guy Kenny Rogers had one that made the top 20 that year called The Gambler. TV was probably at its classic during those years that she was born. Most of them would never, ever find airtime today, probably. But Three's Company, MASH, Dallas, Jefferson, Dukes of Hazzard, Archie Bunker, Little House on the Prairie, Happy Days, and Charlie's Angels. What good TV times those were. And the movies that hit the charts that year were Superman, Alien, Escape from Alcatraz, Rocky II, Star Trek, and Mad Max with Mel Gibson. Lindsay's parents are Joseph and Susan, sitting right up here on my left. After many years of living in Santa Barbara, they moved to the thriving community of Squaw Valley 5 years ago. And Lindsay did not share her parents with anybody. She was an only child. I suspect you realized you already had perfection, so why mess it up? Lindsay grew up in Santa Barbara, graduated from Carpinteria High School, we believe in 1997. Okay. Her love for horses and jumping were already in play during her high school days. Her decision of where to go to college reflected her passion as she chose Reedley Junior College, and it was there that she earned her 2-year degree in ag business. However, Lindsay benefited far more than just a degree by attending Reedley Junior College, because it was there that she met Stephen Ashburn. As Stephen described that moment, he said that she wanted to ride one of his horses, and after that, he just couldn't get rid of her. Actually, I think what he meant to say, I didn't want to get rid of her. Who would have thought that a borrowed horse would lead to a walk down the aisle? But for Stephen and Lindsay, it did. They were married on June the 1st, 2002, and their almost 20-year marriage brought them one beautiful blessing. I think they figured out the same thing you all did, and that is they already had perfection. Why take a risk of messing it up? And that's Elena. She's a student in Clovis Unified, and I believe you're 17 years old, if I'm not mistaken. Right after Stephen and Lindsay were married, they lived near Shaw Academy, and then for the last 5 years, they've lived in Squaw Valley. Lindsay was fortunate that her passion was also a career for her. She got to teach people, mostly kids, how to ride horses. She taught English, but also Western. Lindsay believed riding lessons were more than just teaching kids which end of a horse was what, and how to saddle one. You see, she believed learning life's lessons was a part of riding lessons. She reminds me of another cowgirl who was popular when I was a kid. Some of you might remember her name, Dale Evans, Roy Rogers' sidekick, the greatest cowboy of all time. Dale Evans said, "Cowgirl is a spirit. It's a special brand of courage. A cowgirl faces life head on, lives by her own lights, makes no excuses. Cowgirls take stands. They speak up. They defend the things they hold dear. A cowgirl might be a rancher or a bell racer or a bull rider or an actress, but she's just as likely to be a checker at the local Winn-Dixie or a full-time mom, a banker, an attorney, or an astronaut." That sounds an awful lot like Lindsay. Her hobbies were her passion and her work, horses. She also loved shopping. She enjoyed photography. She was pretty crafty, and you'll notice that in some of the pictures up here because you'll see some of the costumes that her daughter is wearing, that she made those. She enjoyed travel, but most of her travels were a combination of her work and her hobby, and that was horse shows. She loved also going to Cape Rios for short getaways. She had fun on a cruise going to Mexico, and she really enjoyed celebrating her 10th anniversary with Stephen in Hawaii. It was an unforgettable memory. Her favorite foods were lobster and steak. Stephen, you married the right kind of woman, man. Surf and turf, it just doesn't get better than that. She also loved, and I just now noticed somebody added decor to the table. There is a coconut cream pie sitting up here on my left. And I understand that was her favorite as well. She got her choice of restaurants. She loved going to Bobby Salazar's. I didn't know they served surf and turf at Bobby Salazar's. If she was watching TV, she watched a program called Ridiculousness. Do you know how hard that is to spell on a computer and it not correct it every single time that you type it out? And she also liked Animal Planet channels. Her favorite style of music, you were listening to some of that if you were paying attention at all as you first came in here, and that was country, anywhere from Marty Robbins to Garth Brooks. Her favorite football team was the Raiders, not because she liked them, but because she loved Stephen, and that was his team. She also rooted for the San Francisco Giants. She was a member of the UCEF and the NRHA, and I am assuming all of you horse people know exactly what I'm talking about when I say both of those, all right? When I asked family and friends to describe her to me, here's some of the words they shared with me. As you hear the list that they gave to me, maybe there is a unique word that pops in your mind that describes your relationship with Lindsay. And after I share this list, I'll give you a chance just to pop off right from where you're seated a word that pops in your mind for Lindsay. She was outgoing. She was happy. She would light up a room. She never met a stranger. She always saw the good in things. She had a great laugh. She was hardworking. She was easygoing. That's a tough combination to find together. That's another reason she was perfection. Hardworking and easygoing. She was determined. She was an incredible mom. I understand you two were like two peas in a pod. You did a lot of things together. And she loved tulips. So anything else that pops in your mind that describes Lindsay for you? Just shout it out where you are. Playful. Sparkly, playful. Right? Oh, bright. Yeah. Of course, Stephen, she was always right too, wasn't she? Yes. All right. Wonder Woman. All right. Resilient. Gracious. Good stuff. Merciful. Okay. Brave. Yeah. Forgiving. Okay. Great. Guys, as other things continue to flood your mind over the next several minutes, hold on to them. And when we go over to the reception area and you're sitting around a table with some food in front of you, share some of those additional thoughts with each other. Now to hear some other more personal reflections about their relationship with Lindy are going to be a couple of friends and then a father-in-law. It's always exciting to hear what a father-in-law has to say about a daughter-in-law. So Alex and Carrie are going to come up first, a couple of friends, and share their thoughts about Lindsay. And I suspect that neither one of them are any taller than I am, so I'm going to leave the mic right where it is. I usually have to move it up for people who come up here. But girls, come on up, get right close to the mic.
You're first. Okay. Hi, my name is Alex. For those of you who don't know me, let me just get this open here. Okay. So, we all who are gathered here today celebrating Lindsay are among the lucky ones in the world. To know her was to know a great person who loved life and had no enemies and believed unicorns are real. Okay. I practiced a lot so I wouldn't do this, okay? To spend time with her was to have a great day with lots of laughing. Or if we couldn't get together, even just a simple text or a silly meme or an SEU post on Facebook to laugh away the day for whatever it might have been. To be with her was to be yourself, and that's a rarity to find. So I wanted to share a couple sayings that I think were Lindsay's motto she lived by. She may have never read the book, but by the way she lived, she could have wrote it. And this book was actually given to me by my bestie right here. One of my besties.
Lindsay also has this book as well.
We shared this. It's the Boy, the Mole, the Fox, and the Horse, written by Charlie Macri. Okay, so that one, and then, but if she could have wrote it, for all I know, she could have wrote it, for all I know, because it speaks Lindsay, and Lindsay in all of her actions. Okay, the first one. I realized why we are all here, whispered whispered the boy. For cake? Asked the mole. To love, said the boy, and to be loved, said the horse. And Lindsay said, there are unicorns. Always remember you matter. You're important, and you are loved, and you bring to this world things no one else can. And there are unicorns. Don't measure how valuable you are by the way you are treated. And there are unicorns. Don't measure, isn't it odd? We can only see our outsides, but nearly everything happens on our insides. And there are unicorns. Most of the old moles I know wish they had listened less to their fears and more to their dreams. And they know that there are unicorns. Home isn't always a place, is it? And unicorns live there. A unicorn is a person or a thing that is rare and highly valued. And Lindsay knew there were unicorns because she is one. And she saw the unicorns in all of us, too.
And this is the part where I'm supposed to pinch her because we're not supposed to be crying. And she said, there's no crying, so.
I screwed it up.
It won't be the first time.
Nope. Or the last.
No. Okay, so my name is Carrie Eade. My family and I are fortunate to have met the Ashburn family through our obsession, passion for horses. On December 30th, Lindsay called me with news that no one wants to share and no one wants to hear. The following weeks, what did Linz do? She wanted to plan a party. She and I planned for hours. I'm sure none of you are surprised by this because girl liked to live it up. And she was always up for a good time. She wanted an absolute celebration, including hot pink wigs and lemon drops. As things progressed, we knew a huge party we were planning wasn't going to happen. Don't get me wrong, we were silly. We did hot pink nails. Stephanie brought wigs. We did massages, matching shirts, and all the things that she wanted, just not in the capacity she was hoping for. She was very specific about what she wanted for this day. She wanted it to be happy, laughing, giggling, and complete with funny stories. So everybody who has funny stories, please share them, because I know she's going to be poking us like, hey, we told you what we wanted. And it is for this reason that I have chosen to share this poem. Look for me in rainbows. As you all know, Lindsay was a rainbow and giggly and sparkly and all the glitter, as you can see with the saddle. And it goes something like this. Time for me to go now. I won't say goodbye. Look for me in rainbows way up in the sky. In the morning sunrise when all the world is new. Just look for me and love me as you know I loved you. Time for me to leave you. I won't say goodbye. Look for me in rainbows high up in the sky. In the evening sunset when all the world is through, just look for me and love me because I'll be close to you. It won't be forever. The day will come and then my loving arms will hold you when we meet again. Time for us to part now. We won't say goodbye. Look for me in rainbows shining in the sky. Every waking moment and your whole life through, just look for me and love me as you know I loved you. Just wish me to be near you, and I'll be there with you. So.
Thank you. It's okay to applaud in church. And now I will have to raise this just a little bit for father-in-law. Mike, come on up and share your thoughts. Okay, all right, moral support. But you're a little short, huh?
That's okay. Always have been, always will be. I am Stephen's mother and Lindsay's mother-in-law, Joanne. I'm usually the one that does speaking, but I didn't know if I could do this today. But here we go. The Ashburn and Dahlgren families would like to thank all of you that have helped and had a part in some way in this journey we have been on for the past several years to bring us to today, the celebration of life for our dear Lindsay. Especially to Carrie, who organized and did a lot of behind the scenes preparing for this to happen today, and all who helped her. Thank you to New Hope Church and to Pastor Tim for all the time and preparing you have put into today. Words cannot express our gratitude to all that have been here going through this journey with Lindsay and us. From the beginning, you have been here in the good times and in the bad times, giving generously of your time, or just be there to listen and let us vent our thoughts and frustrations, and just be there when we would get bad news to encourage us. You sent text messages, called, sent flowers, helped us by making and bringing food and supplies so that we didn't have to worry about feeding everyone, so we would stay focused on taking care of Lindsay. Thank you to the Singleton family for their generous support with the cost of treatment, and to Christine for providing a house for Stephen to stay in while him and Lindsay were in Santa Monica receiving cancer treatment at the hospital. Thank you also to all who blessed and donated to them monetarily to help with the overwhelming expenses. Thank you to all who came by to see Lindsay in the final few weeks at home. Lindsay, along with us, enjoyed the stories, the memories, the adventures, and the poems you wrote and shared that showed just what she meant to you and how she impacted your life. Joe Gibbs, some of you may know, former coach for the Kansas City Chiefs and a NASCAR Cup owner, which is where I know him from, said, "Your influence on earth is the only thing you will leave behind when you are gone." From the look of the crowd here today, Lindsay influenced a lot of people and left a good impression to remember her by. Now she is no longer here. Lindsay saw the good in everyone, always happy and smiling, and I don't recall in the 20-plus years we had the privilege to have her as part of our family that I ever saw her lose her temper or treat anyone or any animal unkindly or with disrespect. You can't say that about very many people, sad to say. And then here I'm going to insert a little story. Elena, her daughter, has always been infamous for her long hair. And it's been from day one, you didn't cut the hair. You didn't trim it, you didn't cut bangs, we don't touch the hair. So when she was about 4 or 5, her and my other grandkids were staying at our house. And if you live in the country, as we do, you know the tradition when the fields are plowed and weather starts warming up, you get little visitors in your house, mice. And so back then, they were just coming out with these lovely little things called sticky traps. Well, back then they were the big sticky traps. They're not the little ones now, they were the big ones. And so I was in the other room, and all of a sudden it got very quiet. And in our living room, we have a built-in bookcase with a TV in the middle, and on each side has bookcases. The bottom is opened about 2 feet high, or 3 feet high, and so there was a mouse trap, sticky trap, I stuck back in the corner to help catch our little visitors. And to my horror, all of a sudden I heard, "Nana!" And I turned the corner, and in the living room I walked, and how they ever did it, I do not know. Here was Elena with this long hair and a that sticky mouse trap smashed to the side of her head. So I look at her, and if any of you know Elena, she's very tender-headed. You know the type of child you have when you're trying to do their hair, and it's, oh, 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 oh. Well, that's Elena, big time. And so I looked at her, and I said, "Mike, we got a problem." And he came in there, and the optimist he always is, said, "Oh, I don't know what you're going to do now. You're in trouble." And instead of encouraging me, he was just like, "You better call Lindsay. I don't see nothing better than having to cut that hair off." Well, back then, it's a trend now, and it's popular to shave one side of your head and have long hair on the other side, but back then it wasn't quite the trend. And that was just, stuck to the side of her head. So I'm looking at this, and I'm trying to remember and think as good as I could, how am I ever going to get this off? Lindsay is going to kill me if I touch a hair or have to cut that hair. And there wasn't hardly a half inch between the hair and the mousetrap. And so I began looking at it and analyzing it, and looking at it and analyzing it and looking at it and analyzing it, and go, "Okay, Lord, I need your help bad." And so I proceed to go pull the peanut butter out of the cabinet. I heard if you put peanut butter on stuff, it helps loosen stuff up. So we started with that. And then, and it was crunchy peanut butter. It wasn't the smooth, it was crunchy. And so then that worked a little, but not real good. And in the meantime, if you was doing any of this, it was, and I didn't want her to end up in a full-blown meltdown, so I was trying to be careful. And so I'm standing there, and finally I remembered I had this product called Dissolve It. And it's to use to dissolve sticky off of labels or things you have. So I went in there, and I got it out, and I began to drench that side of her head. And luckily, to my happy surprise, it started working. And so a few hours later, and a few tears later, I finally had that sticky trap off her head. And there may have been a few hairs that went with it, but luckily to say, we saved the day and the hair was saved. And I didn't have to do the awful call, "Lindsay, I'm so sorry, but your daughter now has short hair." But Elena, you are your mom's proudest thing she has accomplished in this life. And she has passed on to you a kindness that she possessed, and she's passed it on to you, and you are her greatest accomplishment. We love you, and you are a lovely young lady, and she did a very good job, and you can be proud. And so, back to my stories now that I've been a sidetrack. Finally, to Crystal, Stephanie, Lindsay Tharp, Carrie, Rob, and Mario, who were there taking time away from your families to be with us to provide 24-hour care to Lindsay. You laughed with us, you cried with us, knowing her time was coming to an end, and all who provided moral support, both before and after she passed. We are forever grateful to you, and thank you from the bottom of our hearts. Lindsay was special to us. It showed she was special to you too, by you being here today to honor her memory with us. She might be gone from here on earth, but she will never be, she will forever be in our hearts and our memories. Part of life here on earth is loss. It is one of the hardest parts we deal with, being human. We can lose loved ones or friends, or to some guys, their best hunting dog, or their best lure if they like to fish. But we can lose relationships, jobs, homes, and a many other number of things. When we lose things we love, the natural response is to go into a deep sadness, one that doesn't easily go away. Sometimes we go through what they call the 5 stages of grief: denial, anger, bargaining, depression, and acceptance. Not everyone goes through all of these stages, and some people may get stuck in one stage or another. But God wants to help us move to acceptance of the loss that we have suffered. That doesn't mean we no longer are sad. It just means He helps us find comfort in knowing that because we believe in God and believe we will forever spend eternity in heaven, we will be united one day with our loved ones and friends. So to us who believe, this is not goodbye forever, but only separated for a time. Death will come to all of us one day, but God gave us a choice. Will you accept Him and live in heaven for eternity, or the other choice is hell, where you endure pain and suffering for eternity? I'm glad to say that Lindsay chose life with Jesus in heaven. And when she took her final breath on earth, I was there and did the hardest, yet the greatest honor I could ever have, was holding her hand and telling her to run to Jesus' arms. He's standing there waiting to receive you. You will be pain-free, healthy, and your body fully restored forever. I can picture her riding carefree, happy, and smiling from ear to ear through the fields of tulips, her favorite flower, and her hair flying in the wind. And who knows, it might even be hot pink, her favorite color. God has a sense of humor. Just look around this room and around this world. And then she sits down and says, whoa, does a sliding stop, perfect and the longest stop you can imagine, in the ultimate perfect ground. Rainers will understand what I'm talking about. And she smiles and says, I can't wait till Stephen and Elena get here and see this beautiful place, and we get to ride together again. So, as I wait in heaven and watch you every day, I ask God to let you know with signs I never went very far away. I hear you when you're laughing and watch you as you sleep. I ask God to place His arms around you to calm you as you weep. I see you wish the days away, begging to have me back home. So I ask God to send you signs to let you know you are not alone. Don't feel guilty that you have life and I am no longer here. Heaven is truly beautiful. Just you wait and see. So live your life, laugh again, enjoy yourself, be free. I may not be here with you now, but will forever be in your heart and you in mine. So I wait in heaven. I am free from pain and happy, waiting to be united again one day with you.
My turn?
Your turn.
Wow, I wish I'd have went first. It's good to see everybody here today. Man, we've got an overflowing crowd here. What a testimony to people's love for Lindsay. You know, I'm Mike Ashburn, Lindsay's father-in-law, Stephen's dad. And we first met Lindsay, I think it's been 23 years ago now. 20-something years ago, because Stephen and her would have been married 20 years this coming June. You know, Stephen at the time was riding out at Gary Van Hoosen's showing reining horses, and at that time he was going to Reedley College, and he met Lindsay there at Reedley College, as pastor had said. I thought you stole my notes there for a minute. But anyway, Stephen told us about this girl he met. And so he brought her home to ride horses at our place. And man, I met Lindsay. I thought, wow, she's the most polite. I mean, she was well-mannered. I was almost checking myself to see how I acted. She was so polite. And what a girl. And we loved her so much. And so they ended up, they dated for a while. And then Stephen came and told his mom he was going to ask her to marry him. And so he was trying to figure out how to do it. It was Christmas. I believe it was 2000, Christmas of 2000. And so Stephen, and I think he talked to you too, didn't he, Susie? They were trying to figure, and you and this one was instigating things. And they'd got this big rock. This thing must have weighed, 15 pounds? And Stephen wrote, will you marry me on it? And then he wrapped it in. Had you wrap it?
It had to be perfect.
So he wrote, and he put it in this box, and then he wanted to do it privately. It was going to be her Christmas present, to ask her to marry him and give her wedding ring. And so he went, at that time, Stephen was living in a mobile home we had on our property next to our house, and he went out over there to kind of get Lindsay to herself, and he gave her this present, and it was heavy. I mean, she probably couldn't hardly carry it. And so then she comes back all full of smiles. Well, while he's over there, I forgot to tell you, these two was looking out the kitchen window trying to see what was going on and wanted to know every detail. And so, but it was a fun time, and we loved Lindsay so much. But she became part of our family, and over the years, the coconut cream pie was Lindsay's favorite. That's why I made it. And so I found out, at Christmas time I'd make one pie. Well, after we got through eating one time, there was this noise in the kitchen. Well, Stephanie loved coconut pie too. But Stephanie's a little bit more vertically challenged than Lindsay. Lindsay was 6 feet tall. Well, we went in there, Joanne and I went in there, and Lindsay's holding this pie up in the air, saying, Stephanie, if you can reach it, you can have it. Well, there was no way. And then finally Stephanie thought, well, your arms are going to get tired. You're eventually going to put it down. Lindsay said she'd just lick the icing on it and then give it to her. But yeah, we had so many good memories, and we look back now and we laugh at them and enjoy them. And it was just a great time. And so then, the last 3 years were probably the roughest. We found out Lindsay had cancer. And, I got to tell you, I love the Lord. I put him first in everything I do. And so we prayed. We prayed for Lindsay. We prayed, Lord, touch her, heal her. And she'd go through chemo. She'd be cancer-free. And we think, oh, thank you, Jesus, And then it'd come back. And it repeated over and over. And I'm a true believer that Jesus wants to heal everybody, okay? He wants to heal everybody, and I believe it's his will. But it's not always in his wisdom. It's not always his wisdom. So we trust the Lord, and we just left her in Lindsay's hands, but we never stopped praying. We prayed right up to the end that God would heal her. But there's one thing cancer does to you. If you get a diagnosis like that, it makes you think. It makes you prepare for what's after. You know what I'm saying? And I know that when Joanne told Lindsay it was okay, baby, just go on and run to the arms of Jesus, that she did. Because she got calm, peaceful, and then she just slipped away into eternity. And let's face it, we're all going to face our last breath sometime. And we got to ask ourselves, well, am I going to be running into the arms of Jesus? And it's not rocket science. In Romans chapter 10, verses 9 and 10, it gives you step-by-step directions if you want to be that way, how to be eternally secure with Christ. So I'm just so thankful that Lindsay was a part of our life, and that we can look back and have those great memories. But, we're going to see her again. I'm planning on going to heaven, and I'm planning on riding horses with her up there. So I told Steph, that if we could look into the portals of heaven, we'd see her holding that pie up there. If you can reach it, you can have it. Well, thanks, guys. That's about as far as I can get.
We would also like to thank, with the generosity of Barrett Hilscher that's here today, for providing a private plane ride home when they had to bring her back from LA so she didn't have to endure that long trip. We thank you. Forever we'll be grateful. Thank you for being a part of her life and letting us speak to you today.
Thank you, Pastor.
Thank you, guys. Stephen, you didn't tell me your parents were preachers. Good jobs. Thanks for sharing your hearts. Draw your attention to the screen. Somebody once said a picture paints 1,000 words. You're in store for about 1,000,000. All right, as you sit back and let a pictorial tribute to Lindsay. Great job, guys, putting that together. Thank you. I watched a lot of you come in today, and I noticed that many of you were wearing jeans of one brand or another, whether they were Levi's or Wranglers or something a little more modern, but you all had jeans on. Go back with me in your mind for a moment to the Old West. It's the 1870s. Weary cowboys wearing dusty Levi's gather around a blazing campfire after a day out working on the open range. You can hear the lonely howl of a coyote as it counterpoints the notes of a guitar as the moon floats serenely overhead. You starting to mellow out a little bit? Suddenly, a bellow of pain shatters the night as a cowpoke leaps away from the fire, dancing in agony. Do you know what happened? Hot rivet syndrome. Any of you ever experienced it personally? It ain't pleasant. It had captured another victim. You see, in those days, Levi's were made as they had been in the first days of Levi Strauss. Copper rivets at the stress points to provide extra strength. On those original Levi's Model 501s, the crotch rivet was the critical one. And when cowboys crouched too long beside a campfire, the rivet became uncomfortably hot. And for years, the brave men of the West suffered this occupational hazard. And then in 1933, Walter Haas Sr., the new president of Levi Strauss, went camping in a pair of 501s. He was crouched by a crackling fire, guess where? Right up here behind us in the high Sierras. He was drinking in the pure mountain air when he fell prey to hot rivet syndrome. He consulted with some of the other professional wranglers that were in his party. Have they ever experienced this mishap? A very impassioned yes was the reply. And Haas vowed that day to rid the world of the offending rivet. And at the very next meeting of the board of directors, they voted into extinction. Perspective is really important. One of the things I like about horse riding, I learned as a small child from my uncle. Had horses for about 27 years of my life, right next to some folks I saw in those pictures. The Wilhites I used to be their neighbors. And I've often had people tell me it's very simple to ride a horse. 2 rules. 1 is how to mount the horse. Number 2, how to stay mounted. It's pretty simple. It's not a complicated thing. It's very, very practical. But today, you and I live in a very tense, uptight, fast-paced world that is no longer simple. It's often very confusing, and it's filled with urgency. I read an article in a Tacoma, Washington newspaper not long ago. Actually, it's probably been 11 or 12 years ago now. And it told the story of a basset hound by the name of Tattoo. Tattoo did not intend to go for a run that evening. But what happened was the owner shut the dog's leash in the car door with Tattoo on the outside of the vehicle. Tattoo had no choice but to run. Motorcycle cop Terry Filbert noticed a passing vehicle with something putting its legs up and down very quickly. He commented that poor basset was putting him up and putting him down as fast as he could. He chased that car to a stop, and Tattoo was rescued, thank God. But not before that dog reached a top speed of 22 miles an hour. Falling down, rolling over a few times. Does Tattoo's life at that moment sound an awful lot like ours sometimes? Too many of us picking it up and putting them down as fast as we can, rolling around and at times feeling dragged through life. Time magazine noted back in the 1960s, expert testimony was given at a Senate subcommittee on time management. They predicted that advances in technology like computers and iPads would radically change how many hours people work a week. They forecasted that the average American would be working only 22 hours a week within 20 years. Do you remember I told you this was in 1960? The great challenge, the expert said, would be figuring out what to do with our excess time. Almost 60 years later, after major advances in technology, are any of you trying to figure out what to do with your excess time? I don't think so. Our world has become the world of the Red Queen of Alice in Wonderland. When she said, now here you see, it makes all the running you can do to keep in the very same place. And if you want to go someplace else, you must run at least twice as fast as you are now. Sounds like life, doesn't it? And could you turn the cooler off on this side? I got ladies shivering over here. How many of you feel like that life is too fast? Yeah? Take a quiz with me for just a moment. Fill in the blanks. I'm ready to throw in the towel. I'm at the end of I'm just a bundle of, my life is falling. I'm at my wits. I feel like resigning from the human. See, you guys know exactly what I'm talking about. We're all experiencing the rat race. Just when we thought we were getting ahead, faster rats show up. And remember this, though, whoever wins the rat race is still a rat. You and I need to learn in this crazy world that we live in how to experience some rest. If all we needed was sleep, we can take a nap. But have you ever gone to bed at night, slept all night, woke up the next morning more tired than you were before you went to bed the night before? Yeah, that's because there's a kind of rest that we need that we don't find in just sleep. That's what provides rest for the body. And we can occupy ourselves with other things that get our mind off of some things, and that distracts us mentally. But where we really need rest that brings sufficient adequacy to both our mind and our emotions is we need rest in our soul. Not 60 years ago, but 2,000 years ago, Jesus Christ understood that when he said in Matthew chapter 11, "Come to me, all of you who are tired and weary and frustrated with life, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon me and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. My yoke is easy, my burden is light." On that day, to a bunch of very tired, weary people, kind of like Tattoo, the basset hound, Jesus said, "I've got 3 invitations for you. Not 3 demands, not 3 commands, 3 invites. It's your choice what you do with the invitation." And Jesus said this. He said, "Come to me. Come to me, and you will find rest for your soul." You know, notice what Jesus didn't say. He didn't say, "Come to church." I'm not even going to invite you to church tomorrow. Although we have 3 services at 8, 9:30, and 11. I'm not inviting any of you to show up. Because Jesus didn't invite anybody to church. Jesus' invitation was, come to him. That's where Christianity begins. Not at church, but in meeting Christ personally. You see, just because we may go to McDonald's a lot, and by the way, my dad lived to be 96. He just passed away in December. He ate breakfast 5 out of 7 days a week at McDonald's. It finally killed him. But as much as my dad ate breakfast at McDonald's, he never became Ronald. Because eating at McDonald's doesn't do that. You can sleep in a garage, and that won't turn you into a Ford or a Chevy. You could go to church, and you might find a nap. Several do. But you don't find rest for your soul. We find that in a relationship, to have a personal relationship with Jesus. Just as you found delight in a personal relationship with a young lady at Reedley Junior College, that's the same kind of relationship that Jesus wants to have with us. Spiritual rest. Jesus said, "I'll give you rest to those who labor." That's for people who work so hard trying to get ahead in life, who work so hard trying to be successful, who work so hard trying to add meaning to who they are, and they never are satisfied. Jesus says, "Come to me, come to the cross, and there you will find rest for your soul. You can exchange your frustrations for my forgiveness." And then he also promises rest for those who are heavy laden. They are overburdened. They are wearied with worry. They are staggering under the weight of both worry and work. 2 fairly popular people, though I'm showing my age. Elena, you may have no idea who these people are. Nicolas Cage? Sorta, yeah, all right. He was an actor. Who would be a contemporary she would know? Brad Pitt, do you know Brad Pitt? Okay, all right. Nicolas Cage is about 30 years older than Brad Pitt, but he was an actor. Nicolas Cage said, "I wonder if there's a hole in the soul of my generation. We've inherited the American dream, And what good has it done us? Harrison Ford. You know that name? Yeah, all right. He was in, what was the movie he was in? Who? Yeah, Raiders of the Lost Ark. You ever watch that? Oh, you got to get your daughter into that. All right, all right. Just so I don't feel so old. All right. But Harrison Ford, a multi-billion-dollar actor, said, "You only want what you ain't got, and what ain't we got? We ain't got any peace." You see, you don't find that in work and worry. You find that in a relationship with Jesus Christ. And that's what he promises us. Come to me. His second invitation in that verse was, once you come to me, then take my yoke. That's old conversation for, a plow and putting the yoke over two oxen or two horses so they pull it together. It's a harness, all right, sort of like pulling a trailer. And Jesus says, come pull through life with me. Let me carry the burden for you. The yoke of rules and religion is what man makes. Man is the one who creates religion in the world, not Jesus. And it's awful frustrating to try to function under the laws and demands of religion. But Jesus says, my yoke is easy. This is the relationship of this is the yoke of relationship with Jesus Christ. We are told that Jesus' daddy was a carpenter on earth, Joseph, and that very possibly one of the signs above Joseph's carpenter shop may have been something like this: my yoke fits well. In other words, when we choose to partner up in this relationship with Jesus Christ, it is a perfect fit. Jesus says, take up your yoke with me. I want to connect with you and be with you. I want to provide direction. I want to walk and dance through life with you. And he wants to share the labor of work in this world. And he said, so work with me and I'll make your work much easier. And then his third invitation in this verse is not only come to me, not only take up your yoke, but learn things about life from me. I'm here to help you. And he said, I'll help you at least in two ways. Number one, I'll make you more gentle. That is strength under control. Like gentling a horse, God would love to gentle us, but it must be our choice. Peter writes in 1 Peter 5:7, give all your worries to Christ because he cares about you. The other way he'll work in our life that we can learn is how to be humble. In other words, not to be selfish, but selfless. Not think about myself first, but think about others first. And this rest that he gives, it is a free gift. You don't have to pay for it or earn it. It's a generous gift. Come to me. All you have to do is accept the invitation. And then the rest we find is this wonderful discovery that there is no fear or burden of what Jesus might do to our life because he's gentle and humble as he cares for us. One day a man went by to see a farmer who was plowing his field with a team of oxen. The man noticed that one of the animals was seemingly a little bigger than the other, and so he asked the farmer about it. And the response from the farmer was interesting and informative. He said the big animal was an older animal, well-trained, and the smaller one was younger and was brand new to the yoke. And the man went on to inquire, why would you put the two of them together? And this is what the farmer said. He said, it's like this. The older ox is the best ox I've ever had. He knows his way around the field, and the reason I put him with the younger is so the younger will learn from the older, more knowledgeable and experienced. If I never put them together, the younger one never would learn. By himself, the younger ox would work himself to death, but together he learns to submit to the strength of the other ox. May you and I learn to submit to the strength of the one who wants to be our Savior and our Lord. Let me wrap this up. One of my favorite Western movies of all time is a movie called Open Range. Any of you ever see it? Okay, isn't it a great movie? It's a Western focusing on a small group of free grazers led by Boss Spearman, played by Robert Duvall. Charlie Waite is played by Kevin Costner, who is reluctantly drawn into a gun battle against a ruthless cattle rancher. A favorite scene of mine in that movie, and there are several, takes place at the final gun battle. It's one of the best choreographed gun battles ever in the history of Westerns, all right? While the town's been freed from an unjust tyranny, Charlie is wounded, both in his body by bullets and his soul by what he thinks is a love he can never know. He's been overcome by the violence and the death of all that's gone on around him. He finds his way into a bar and into a saloon, and he's laid out on the bar in the saloon, injured, beaten down, weary. He asks everybody to leave the saloon, and then he asks for them to send Sue in. That's the romantic interest in the movie. She's played by Annette Bening. She comes in, and they begin to have a conversation about forgiveness, love, and the spilling over of life. Now, I know this is a movie, but I saw more in it than just a love scene. Listen to how this scene goes. Sue enters the saloon, and she approaches Charlie laying on the bar, and he looks up. I didn't mean for you to have to walk into a place like this to see me. I don't care what anyone thinks, Charlie. You don't have to stand up for me, Charlie. You just lay there. Charlie sits up anyway. Just the same, Sue, I want to tell you I'm going to be leaving in a day or two. I'd like you to stay, Charlie. I think others in town would too. I can't say that I haven't thought about that, Sue, but truth is there wouldn't be a corner of this town that don't have a bad memory for me. Charlie, I've been holding on to love for a long time. I know you feel something for me too. Charlie said, oh, Sue, I do. But I ain't no more than those who've come to kill us. You've seen what kind of man I am for yourself. Sue said, well, Charlie, you've done some bad things, but maybe worse than bad. But what happened here today isn't one of them. Charlie looks at Sue and said, those killings, they don't give you pause? I'm not afraid of you, Charlie. He hands back a necklace she had given to him for good luck, and she says, no, that's yours, Charlie. You keep it. It's yours now. It's yours forever. Charlie, I don't have all the answers, but I know that people get confused in this life about what they want and what they've done and what they think they should have done because of it. Everything they think they are or did takes hold so hard it won't let them see who they can be. I got a big idea about us, Charlie. And I'm not going to wait forever, but I am going to wait. And when you're far away, I want you to think about that. And Charlie, I want you to come back to me. And folks, 2,000 years ago, Jesus Christ hung on a cross and he died. And he did it for one reason and one reason alone, and that is because he loves you and me. And from that cross, he says to all of us, I got some big ideas about you. I've got some big ideas about us. And you might have some ideas about the things you've done and how bad you've been, but I want you to know I love you. And if you're far, far away from me, why don't you come back to me? Jesus says, come to me. I will give you rest for your soul. Dale Evans said, I've studied a lot of religions, many different persuasions of thought and Christian belief, and I have come in this experience to this. The most important question that any of us can ask is what poor Pilate was asked. What then shall I do with Jesus Christ? Today I ask you that same question. If you can believe in unicorns, who no one on the face of this earth has ever seen, then you ought to be able to believe in Jesus because he lived and he died and he rose again. And we still talk about him 2,000 years later. Don't let some mean Christian keep you away from Jesus. Let the light and love of somebody like Lindsay on this day draw you to him. Would you join with me as I close our time together for this moment in prayer? And if you've never had a personal relationship with Christ, why not now? Why not at this moment? The quietness of these next few minutes as I pray, you can, in the quietness of your heart, say, Lord Jesus, I don't know all there is to know about you, but I know enough that you were born at Christmas time, and I know I get a week off at Easter time because of you. And you promised me a whole lot more than just a week of vacation. You promised me that death doesn't have the last word. The grave is not something to be afraid of, but I have everlasting life. Why don't you come live in my life, Lord Jesus? Let's pray. Our Father, I'm so grateful for the privilege of the people that you bring into my life. It has been an absolute joy to meet Stephen in these last few weeks and his beautiful daughter. It's been great to get a picture in my head and in my heart about a wife and a mom and a daughter and how Lindsay lived her life here. Thank you for the friends that would step to the plate and take on plans that are bigger than they probably thought they would ever be just to make this moment something special for friends and family. Father, I'm grateful that you invaded our world so that we could have a relationship with you. You're the God of creation, so you could make us do anything that you wanted. But Father, relationships are not based on demands. They're based on love. And for God so loved the world, he gave his only begotten Son, that whosoever will, that's any person who's in this room right now, believes in Jesus Christ, we will have everlasting life. Thank you for the hope that gives us on a day like today. Thank you for the promises that on days like today we can cling to, that there will be a reunion someday. I thank you that you'll be available to comfort the needs of this family and these friends in the days ahead as they face some firsts in the coming months. You will be there to get them through. Thank you for this and so much more. In the name of Christ we pray. Amen. Amen.